All right, Shalom. You reached the He Prayed channel. My name is Isaac McGuire. But first and foremost, I want to say, call Halayim Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai Bahashim Harakhakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Gadallah Rakhaim, who I learned this truth from and who rule well. Salutations to the Bakiyar, the elect, 144,000. That's 12,000 men from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. 12 tribes of Israel consist of you so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous of America. The 144,000 being the governing body within the one-third. The rest of the one-third comprises of elect men, women, and children. Shalom to those Israelites scattered due to the diaspora and also the triangular trade. So people come looking like different ethnicities, having various complexions. So this is not a black thing. We're not the black Hebrew Israelites. We're just Hebrew Israelites. Shalom to those that died in this truth. And it says the dead should be raised up first. Those that will be accompanying Yahushua on his return, including our King, King Mashah, who is King David. And as always, it's an honor and privilege, honor and blessing to continue to do this work. The water Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushua Ba'ashim Harakakodash for answering my prayers and permitting me to do such. Baba Kashal Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushua Ba'ashim Harakakodash. Allow this to be an edifying lesson to at least one member of the elect. Yeah, just bear with me real quick. I want to put some tunes on because it helps me think. You can make some rain. That's not what I was trying. That's a commercial. Fucking commercials. All right, Con. So I was doing a little research and going into like Ezekiel 38 and 39 because something caught my eye dealing with Gog, which Gog is that ancient land, that ancient Japhetic land is being occupied by Edomites that go by Russians, go by the Russians. You know, so we know Gog in the scriptures is talking about Russia, right? And, you know, there's been a lot of speculation on certain things dealing with future prophecies. And one key thing is the third Babylon, which is America, gets invaded. So I typed in Copilot, does the third Babylon get invaded in Jeremiah 50 and 51? Yes. Jeremiah 50 and 51 absolutely describes an invasion of the third Babylon, meaning mystery Babylon, the end time Babylon. You know, and who runs this world, man? As we're starting to see, as you know, the wicked are being revealed. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 6, verse 7. Says, then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of the age? or the times, right? Because we know that word times goes into the age. Or when shall be the end of the first, which is the Gentiles. Or we're in the time of the Gentiles, right? In the beginning of it that followeth, which is going to be the kingdom of heaven, which is eternal, where you so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous are going to be as what you were originally designed to be, which is God's, powers over the earth and the nations, right? And he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, showing you male genealogy, when Jacob and Esau, so these are the two principal sons, Jacob and Esau, the two candidates in which the Heavenly Father has chosen to bring about this great prophetic masterpiece that he has written, right? It says, where born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau, which that was symbolic that in the latter time after, when Esau was ruling, as he's ruling now, it will be Jacob that is going to take him out of power. And he's going to be taken out of power by the Heavenly Father's Son, whose name is Yahweh Shai, right? It says for Esau, which Esau, who he is the so-called white man, whether he calls himself American, a European, a Russian, Israeli, so on and so forth, white, right? Which, I always like to mention he started calling himself white in 1681 in Virginia, due to the Bacon rebellions, because there was a lot of Jakes that may have looked like Edomites or so-called white people, but they were really Israelites, you know. So what the Edomites did was just made anyone lighter than a brown paper bag basically white and having so-called white privileges, so it will prevent the slaves and, those poor whites organizing mutinies, I guess you could say, right? It says, for Esau is the end of the world, right? So we're at the end of the world, right? And Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth, right? And the word for world will be eon, which will be age. I mistakenly said age means times, but really it is when you read within the context of the scriptures, the part asunder of times, which would have to be an age. That's how times are part of the sunder. Uh, so, the KJV. Oh yeah, let's go back here. So it says, yes, Jeremiah 50 and 51 absolutely describes a invasion of the third Babylon, meaning mystery Babylon, which this third Babylon is dealing with America. The end time Babylon, not ancient Nebuchadnezzar's empire. The language, timing, scale, and outcome all point to a future Babylon that is destroyed by a coalition of nations, not the historical city, right? This is one of the clearest places where the Bible shows the final Babylon is invaded, attacked, burned, and left desolate, right? So part of America's pride is the fact that it's never been touched by war, making it a virgin, right? So it says what Jeremiah 50 and 51 actually describes. Jeremiah 50 and 51 contains prophecies that were never fulfilled in ancient Babylon's fall, 539 BC. Instead, they matched the end time Babylon of Revelation 17 and 18, which that's dealing with America. The chapters describe a military invasion from many nations coming from the north, which these nations are going to be led by Russia, destroying Babylon with arrows, which are the nuclear missiles, fire, and siege. So they're going to run a blockade on America so that nothing goes in and nothing comes out. It says, leaving it uninhabited forever. Right. So when you see America from an aerial view, it will look like a lake of fire with no survivors and no rebuilding. Ancient Babylon did not fall this way. And that's what a lot of you need to get in your numbskull. Let's see. Key invasion details in Jeremiah 50 and 51. A coalition of nations attacks Babylon. So let's get that in Jeremiah real quick. I'm going to open up in a new tab. Jeremiah 50 and 9. So this is what we're going to start seeing next. This is Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 9. It says, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against America a assembly of great nations from the north country, right? And this north country is dealing with, Russia and its allies. Let's look at Russia and its allies. So Russia's allied countries is Armenia, Belarus, or Belarus, which they were given nuclear weapons. I believe they are hosting Sarmat missiles. Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, North Korea, China, Uzbekistan, India, Pakistan, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Ethiopia, which is biblical, Syria, Indonesia, Iran, which is biblical, South Africa, Egypt. So there's going to be a coalition of nations that are going to be allied with Russia, which is the North country that's coming up against Babylon, which is America, right? And also among them, they're going to have NATO in those EU nations, right? Because when you go to Revelation, chapter 17, it says, the beast shall hate the whore, right? This is Revelation chapter 17, verse 15. And he saith unto me, the waters, which the waters represent, which is going to say it, which thou sawest where the whore sitteth. So let's go back to the first verse. It says, the doom of Babylon, which this is dealing with America. There came one of the seven angels, which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore, which is America, that sitteth upon many waters. Right. And it's kind of fitting, especially if you read the book, The 13th Tribe, Esau, because you could tell a lot by a man, you could tell a lot about a man through his woman, you know, when you read that tribe, when you read the book, The 13th Tribe, he writes about how, Esau's women were nothing but whores. They have barely nothing on. They'll sit with their crotch wide open and pick insects from their crotch and eat it. That's what he described. That's what he wrote. So it's fitting that America is deemed as a whore, right? It says that sitteth upon many waters. Now going back down to 15, addressing the waters, it says the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues, right? And the 10 horns, which are those Edomite European nations, dealing with NATO and the European Union, which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. So as you see on the world stage, they're not really budging and interested in Allah, I, Slaki, Ali, or partnering, allying. There we go, with America, man. Especially with this war endeavor dealing with Iran. They ain't really. They're kind of reluctant. They're remembering all the tough talk. NATO got to pay their fair share. They're remembering the tariffs. Donald Trump alienated America and made them small, made them despised, and that's all through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushua. So what is NATO and the EU going to do? It says these shall hate the whore. So you're going to start seeing them turn against America and shall make her desolate and naked. And they're going to do that by shooting missiles on this place. And shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For the Yahweh have put in their minds to fulfill his will. So the Heavenly Father is the one that's controlling the minds of men. There's no such thing as free will, man. His judgment is going to come to pass no matter, how the fuck you feel. It says, and to agree. So they have agreed with each other to be a part of NATO, the European Union, or trade agreements, and give their kingdom onto the beast, which is NATO, until the words of the Most High shall be fulfilled. And we're entering into that time. NATO's going to turn on America. You already see how Canada and Mexico are pivoting away from, dealing with America. It says, in the woman, which is America, which thou sawest, is that great city, that number one superpower, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Yeah, it tries to act as the world's police, right? So going back to Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 9, it says, and they shall set themselves in array against her. So they're going to surround America. From thence she shall be taken. They're going to have their submarines. They're going to have all their shit. It says their arrows, which are their missiles, shall be as of a mighty expert man, right? And obviously, because America has no more defenses, they're all shot up, man. And they don't have any homeland missile defense batteries, man. So basically it's unprotected. It says none shall return in vain. And we already seen the precision of, the missile technology that the Most High put into these nations, into their minds, right? It says, in Chaldea shall be a spoil, which that's those rich elite bankers, all that spoil her shall be satisfied, saith Yahweh. Because you were glad, because you rejoiced, O you destroyers of my heritage, because you are grown fat as the heifer at grass and bellow as bulls. Your mother, which is Great Britain, shall be sore confounded. She that bare you shall be ashamed, because even Britain is going to shoot missiles on this place. Behold, the hindermost of the nations, which this is talking about America, because it's on, geographically at the end of the world. If you was to lay the world flat on the map and start in the east, it says the hindermost of the nations shall be a wilderness, because it's going to be a desert after it's destroyed, a dry land and a desert. Because of the wrath of Yahweh, it shall not be inhabited, but it shall be wholly desolate. Everyone that goeth by Babylon shall be astonished and hiss at all her plagues, because it's going to be burn, baby, burning. Right? Going back to Copilot, it says this never happened to ancient Babylon. Cyrus took the city peacefully without a multitude or without a multi-nation invasion. Right? So let's go to Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 30. It says the mighty men, which are the armies of America, have forborne to fight, right? Meaning, let's get that. Let's go ahead and get that meaning. Forborne. Because Slovakia, I'm too excited, man. You soldiers, and you're already exhibiting this spirit, and you ain't even really gotten into the thick of this shit.
Strong's H 2308. Chadal. Chadal. And the form just below that, Chadel. Chadel.
So it says to stop, cease, to cease, forego, cease to be, leave undone, forbear. To cease, come to an end, to cease, leave off, unoccupied. I have forbear right here in the etymology. To abstain, abstain from, abstain. What does abstain mean? Avoid something, refrain oneself from, keep free from sin or vice, practice abstinence. So they're going to avoid fighting, man. And there's nothing you could do about it, because the Most High controls your mind. He's going to put the spirit on you American soldiers, as he's already doing, to abstain or avoid the fight. It says they have remained in their holds, their might have failed. So it's going to be a complete clusterfuck for America, man. Holds, they could, not even want to get on the damn bus to go to that, 1 or 2 week basic training, or they might stay in the barracks. They're going to have a weak spirit on them. Their might is going to fail. right? Especially considering they're running out of missiles. And, Trump talking about they got a virtually unlimited supply. He's full of shit. It says they became as women. They have burned her dwelling places. Her bars are broken. Right. Because dealing with your bars, you go to a bad neighborhood, you see bars on the window. That's to keep people from, going through the window. So it's set up as a defense. You see, America has no more defenses, man. They have exhausted them. Well, I guess you could say Israel, not Israel, but well, yeah, you could say Israel got them destroyed. You know, it says one post. Deal with military posts. You know, especially dealing with the ancient world. That's how they will communicate. They'll have a horse rider go and deliver a message, or they'll have a bird go and fly and deliver a message to another group of soldiers that are positioned at a post, right, to watch over, to see the incoming enemy. It says, one post shall run to meet another, and one messenger to meet another, to show the king of Babylon, the president of America, that his city is taken at one end, right? So to me, it'll make sense if it was dealing with the West Coast, of America, because you know Russia's going to come through Alaska. They're going to invade through the Pacific, so it'll make a lot of sense. Even dealing with the surprise attack, that they're setting up missile. Let me see, missiles launch cargo ships. Let me do co-pilot. All right, okay. It says missiles launched from cargo ships are a real documented capability and one of the most strategically disruptive developments in modern warfare. The core idea is simple: hide a missile launcher inside a standard shipping container, place it on a commercial looking vessel, and fire from anywhere in the world's oceans. But the implications are enormous, right? So they could have, what, thousands of cargo ships with these missiles on them, ready to strike within the homeland of America. That's what you people have to look forward to, man. It says what missiles launched from cargo ships actually means. Three distinct systems exist today: containerized missile launchers. These are missiles hidden inside standard 20 or 40-foot shipping containers. They can be placed on cargo ships, merchant vessels, port facilities, trucks, or rail cars. The launcher opens like a normal container, elevates, and fires. China and Russia have both demonstrated this concept. China has shown long-range cruise missiles fired from containerized launchers on commercial-looking ships. Russia has animated and tested similar systems, including Caliber cruise missiles hidden in containers. This is the most dangerous version because it blurs the line between civilian and military vessels. So that would be a way that they can hit this place, man. It says why militaries are pursuing this: stealth and deniability. A container ship looks like any other vessel in global trade. You can hide dozens of launchers among thousands of containers. First strike reach. A disguised ship can sail close to an adversary's coastline and launch. Cruise missiles, anti-ship missiles, potentially hypersonic weapons in the future. This bypass traditional early warning systems. Cost efficiency: instead of building a warship, you can convert a merchant vessel or simply load containers onto an existing one. Who currently has this capability? China is the most advanced in operationalizing containerized launchers. They've demonstrated long-range cruise missiles fired from container ships. Containerized launchers integrated into civilian logistics networks. Russia has promoted the Club K system, Caliber cruise missiles hidden in shipping containers. They've shown animations of these systems firing from cargo ships. Iran has not shown containerized launchers on cargo ships, but it has converted merchant ships into drone missile carriers, used disguised vessels for military operations. Given their doctrine, Iran is the most likely to adopt containerized missile systems if supplied by China or Russia, and they already been talking about that. You know, let me see. I think it was this one. So it says back in Jeremiah 51:31, to show the king of Babylon or the president of America, whoever it may be, because who knows what's going to happen. It says that his city is taken at one end. So America's going to get taken at one end, man. And I'm assuming it will be the West Coast. And that the passages are stopped and the reeds they have burned with fire, and the men of war are afraid it. All that Call of Duty shit, that tough American arrogance is going to go right out the window because the Most High is going to zap it out you and put a bitch spirit in you, and there's nothing that you're going to be able to do about it. It says, for thus saith Yahweh of hosts, the power of Yasharallah, the daughter of Babylon, which is America, is like a threshing floor. It is time to thresh her. Yet a little while, and the time of her harvest shall come. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, have devoured me. He have crushed me. He have made me an empty vessel. He have swallowed me up like a dragon. He hath filled his belly with my delicacies. He hath cast me out. The violence done to me and to my flesh be upon Babylon. And all the atrocities, them denying, the truth, you know, what it really is, them saying, um, that they're the people, put hell oppressed us, right? It says, the violence done to me and to my flesh be upon Babylon. Shall the inhabitant of Zion say, and my blood upon the inhabitants of Chaldea shall Jerusalem say. Therefore, thus saith Yahweh, behold, I will plead thy cause and take vengeance for thee. Right? So the most mightiest army is going to be the one that's going to take vengeance for you so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous for all the things that were ever done to you by these damn devils. It says, and I will dry up her sea and make her springs dry, and Babylon shall become heaps, a dwelling place for dragons, a astonishment and a hissing without an inhabitant. It's going to be made into a vast desert, once that fire extinguishes or burns down, burns out. It says, they shall roar together like lions, they shall yell as lions' whelps. In their heat I will make their feast, and I will make them drunken, that they may rejoice and sleep a perpetual sleep and not wake, saith Yahweh. Okay, I misread it. I was supposed to go, but it's still cool. Going back to Jeremiah 50 and 39, it says, therefore the wild beasts of the desert with the wild beasts of the island shall dwell there, and the owl shall dwell therein, and it shall be no more inhabited forever, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation, as the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, which he did that through fire, splitting the atom, and creating what you see today as the Dead Sea, right? It says, in the neighbor cities thereof, saith Yahweh, so shall no man abide there, neither shall any son of man dwell therein. And that's dealing with America, man. And, the end is close, by the way, if you didn't get the memo. So it says, ancient Babylon was not burned. It continued to be inhabited for centuries. Ancient Babylon remained populated long after Cyrus, Alexander the Great, planned to rebuild it. So going back to Jeremiah 51 and 8, it says, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. That fallen goes back to its economy, right? That destruction goes back to that nuclear destruction. How for her take balm for her pain, if so be she may be healed. And that's what they were trying to do, and that's what Trump was really trying to do, trying to make America great again. But we live in a different age than that, white supremacy, Edomite bullshit that they try to push down everybody's throats. It says, we would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her and let us go, everyone into his own country. And then you're going to start seeing a mass exodus because people are starting to realize, there ain't no money to be made here, man. We can't build a business here. Things are too expensive. It says, for her judgment reacheth unto heaven and is lifted up even to the skies. Right? So it says Cyrus' takeover was slow, peaceful, and negotiated, dealing with the Babylon before it. Going back to Jeremiah 50. What does it say? 54 and 5. I'm going to start at the top. This is Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 1. The word that Yahweh spake against America and against the land of the rich elite bankers by Jeremiah the prophet. Declare ye among the nations and publish and set up a standard. Publish and conceal not. Say, Babylon is taken, Bel is confounded, Merodach is broken in pieces, her idols are confounded, her images are broken in pieces. Right, because America's going to be whack-a-mole. For out of the north there cometh up a nation against her, which is Russia, which shall make her land desolate, and none shall dwell therein. Russia's going to shoot nuclear missiles on this place. They shall remove, they shall depart, but both man and beast, in those days and in that time, saith Yahweh, the children of Yasha'Allah shall come, which is going to be the elect, they and the children of Judah together, which is dealing with both kingdoms, going and weeping, they shall go and seek Yahweh their power, which has been done right now before this day is coming. It says this ties the prophecy to the end time regathering, not the ancient exile. So when you go to Ezekiel 38, in the NLT, this is Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 8. It says, a long time from now, which we're in that time now, you will be called into action. And this is dealing with Russia. In the distant future, you will swoop down on the land of Israel, which that's not talking about the land over there. Because as you can see, they're already getting destroyed. Russia doesn't need to go over there. Russia is coming to the Israel's a people before it's a place, and the true Israel's dwelling here in America, which will be enjoying peace after recovering from war and after his people have returned from many lands to the mountains of Israel. You and all your allies, a vast and awesome army, will roll down on them like a storm and cover the land like a cloud. This is what the sovereign Yahweh says. At that time, evil thoughts will come to your mind, and you will devise a wicked scheme. And the Most High is going to put it in the mind of these leaders. You will say Israel is unprotected, land filled with unwalled villages. No natural defenses. No, I mean, not natural, but I'm talking about their military. No military defenses. It says, I will march against her and destroy these people who live in such confidence. And this is what the Most High is going to put it in the mind of whoever is leading Russia in those days. That they're going to invade America and march on those that have so much exceptionalism, right? Which backs up this article. It says Putin gives himself power to invade countries to rescue arrested Russians. So that could mean any country, ultimately. Says the Kremlin has claimed such responsibility in conflicts ranging from Georgia to Ukraine, often stating that Russian speakers or passport holders needed protection. Now Moscow appears to be strengthening that doctrine through new legislation that could significantly expand the president's authority to deploy troops overseas. New powers to deploy troops abroad. A government commission on legislative activity has approved draft amendments that would broaden President Vladimir Putin's authority to use Russian armed forces outside the country. According to the proposed changes, Putin would be able to deploy troops extraterritorially to protect Russian citizens if they are arrested, detained, or prosecuted abroad. So, what happened recently then that you know caused this to happen? This is from Novaya Gazette EU. It says Swedish prosecutors charged Russian citizen after shadow fleet cargo ship seized. So they're big mad about their citizens being arrested, especially with all the tension going on. So it says the draft law states that the military could be used to defend citizens of the Russian Federation in cases involving arrest, detention, criminal prosecution, and other forms of prosecution. According to the Interfax source, the provision also applies to situations where Russians are detained by courts that operate without the participation of the Russian Federation or by international judicial bodies that Moscow does not recognize, right? Which all aligns with prophecy, right? Going to uh, the slaughter of Russia's armies, because Russia's going to be destroyed too. Ezekiel 9:1, Son of Man, prophesy against Russia. Give him this message from the sovereign Yahweh. I am your enemy, O Russia, ruler of the nations of Meshech and Tubal. I will turn you around and drive you toward the mountains of Israel, which that's going to America, bringing you from the distant north. I will knock the bow from your left hand and the arrows from your right hand, and I will leave you helpless. You and your army and your allies will all die on the mountains. I will feed you to the vultures and wild animals, right? You will fall in the open fields, for I have spoken, says the sovereign Yahweh. Let's go to the KJV. Let's go to the KJV. Yeah, this is the 101. Ezekiel 9:39. Ezekiel chapter 39, verse 2 in the KJV, it says, and I will turn thee back and leave but the sixth part of thee, and will cause thee to come up from the north parts, and will bring thee upon the mountains of Israel. So let's see. Let's go to Copilot and put it in. Okay, let's see. It says, but the phrase, thee but the sixth part of thee, is not what the Hebrew says. Let's see what it's saying right here. It says the Hebrew verb is shashasa, shasha, yeah, or shish satika. This does not mean 1-6. It means to strike, to attack, to shatter, to break apart, to cut down. Most modern translations render it as I will strike you, I will drive you, I will attack you, I will knock you down. So the verse is not saying God leaves 1-6 alive. It's saying I will break you, drive you forward, and bring you from the far north onto the mountains of Israel. This fits the entire chapter. What Ezekiel 39:2 means in context, the verse describes three actions the Most High takes against Russia's invading army. I will turn you back. God interprets the coalition before it reaches its full objective, or the Most High intercepts the coalition before it reaches full objective. I will strike, break you. This is the beginning of the destruction of the invading forces. I will bring you up from the far north. The Most High drives the coalition into the battlefield where he will judge them. This is not a peaceful movement, it's a forced march into judgment. Because you know that the Heavenly Father, he's going to destroy all these heathen nations, man. Russia is not going to be the winner. America's not going to be the winner. NATO's not going to be the winner. It's going to be Yahweh Shai that is the winner, right? So it says why the 1:6 translation is wrong. The KJV translators struggle with the verb because it appears only once in the Bible, but the root shishiti means to strike violently. Ancient Jewish commentators translate it as smite. Modern Hebrew scholars agree it means attack or drive. No ancient source interprets it as 1/6. So the idea that the Most High leaves 1/6 alive is a translation artifact, not the meaning of the text. Well, I stand corrected then. I always thought, Russia was only going to leave 17% of his army still in Russia, but maybe it's, well, not maybe, but all these nations are going to be destroyed down to remnants and they're going to go into slavery, you know. But yeah, that's it on that. Just wanted to make a point that America is going to be invaded. So with that, I hope at least one brother elect was edified, and I'm going to say shalom.